answer any questions you may have. So first, we'll be just covering. Man, I just said it, but then I forgot to re-record, so I'm just going to say it again. We're covering the patch stuff first. If there's any notes, I'll talk about along the way. And if you have any questions, we'll cover at the end, and we'll discuss how it will affect all of the meta and all that stuff. Cool. So we got Lee, Respawn Sean, JFresh, and Scripticus are providing this patch. Apex from Respawn, Apex Legends, the game. They do it through Reddit. Cool beans. This will be patch 1.1.1, which goes live already. They released the patch notes after the patch even went live. And bummer, dude, I just now got to the patch notes, so it's a day late for the upload on YouTube, and it's the end of the night when I can actually cover it live. They just came out of nowhere. I couldn't like talk about the patch notes beforehand before it went live or anything. So it's already live. You probably experienced a lot of these effects. You might not realize you've experienced a lot of these effects, but it's pretty significant. This is easily the biggest update patch that they've done so far. The most changes by far to change how Apex will play. And then I'm excited to see how the future develops and see how accurate my predictions are. Generally, my predictions are pretty accurate with these kinds of things in games that I'm largely involved with, such as Apex. So cool beans. They're changing Caustic and Gibraltar. They're updating them. So I shouldn't really say change. They're updating them by giving them an additional passive called Fortified, where they just flat out take 10% less damage than any other character. Straight up. So they nerfed the not nerfed, but they lowered the hitbox size for Pathfinder, Caustic, and Gibraltar to be a lot more tight along the edges of the character models. The overall hitbox size for Caustic and Gibraltar wasn't that much of a difference, but Pathfinder was like a giant blob, so now it's a lot more thin to go along with the Pathfinder character model. So Pathfinder is sitting pretty good. He still has this bug where if you just use a recovery item like a shield battery or something, and then you immediately try to go into using your ult, it just does this like reset animation you can't get yourself out of until you switch to like a weapon or something, and then you can use your ultimate. So that is really annoying, especially if you need to quickly use the zipline in a fight or something, and you just recover, you want a zipline to get back in the fight or something like that, or try to instantly get another angle. That really screws you over because you don't really think I have to switch to a gun or something afterwards. So hopefully they get that fixed. That's not mentioned here. I've been playing Pathfinder a lot more lately, especially because of the hitbox change. Like I said, he's a lot of fun now, especially because you can zipline, or you can grappling hook onto ziplines like that too, which is super good, especially for map mobility. So he's a lot of fun, but that I would like to get changed. For Caustic Gibraltar, 10% less damage straight up as a passive, always for everything, 10% less damage. We'll cover the Caustic first. He gets the passive, like I said. Gas damage per tick is increased to 4 at start versus the 1. So what you'll see is as people are sitting here at gas, it looks like they're progressively taking more and more damage per second. But what it is every time they're in the gas, they get an additional stack applied to them. So eventually they start taking like 10 damage per second, 11 damage per second, 12 damage per second. And that starts adding up. And when that's added up and ramped up, it's actually insane damage pretty quickly. But because it starts at 1 to apply to each stack, it takes forever to ramp up. But now they buffed it by freaking 300% increase. 4 damage per tick to start. I'm actually I'm going to be playing Caustic tonight. Like 10% less damage straight up is much needed for this character. They did need to buff the damage gas. I was expecting a 2 to 3 per tick, but they went for 4 per tick. That means by 3 seconds deep, you're taking 12 damage per tick. So you've already taken at that point 24 damage in 3 seconds. And if you're sitting in there for 5 seconds, you've already taken like half your health. So what would that be? 24 plus then 16, so that'll be 40 damage plus then 20. Actually nailed it. Hey, quick math. Within 5 seconds, you've taken 50 HP damage. 5 seconds. And then it goes even faster beyond that. So if you get caught in his gas, that's both his gas canisters that he like has to lay the traps, or his ultimate. All gas does the same effect. If you're within that for 5 seconds, you're at half of your HP gone. And if I remember right, that bypasses shielding, right? Pretty sure it bypasses shielding. Um, yeah, pretty sure. That's a lot of damage. So within like I think 7 or 8 seconds, you'll probably be dead in his gas, which is way faster than what it was before. Um, so I think Caustic with those two things combined, he's already going to be a lot better. It's hard to say that he's going to be the best in the game still because you still have to predict trap placements a bit. You still, even with the ultimate throw increase that they were going to provide for him, 28 to 33 meters, that's a 5 meter increase. Think about that's a little better than 1/6 increase, which is like less than 20% increase. It's not that much. It's going to matter. You're going to see it, especially if you play Caustic a lot beforehand. You're going to be like, wow, I can throw so far. But if you quickly reference it, if you don't play Caustic very often, you probably won't really notice much of a difference. Only people who are like maining Caustic will really feel the difference of this. And you're going to experience it. I think it's significant, but it's not as significant as the gas damage tick and the 10% damage reduction. So I think Caustic would probably be bumped. I previously had him as the sole member of C tier because I had Bangalore and Wraith at S tier, Lifeline and Octane at A tier, and then I had Mirage, Pathfinder. No, Mirage and Bloodhound I had at B tier. Pathfinder and Gibraltar I had at C tier, and then Caustic was loaned at D tier. With Pathfinder's changes, I actually bumped him up in my personal rankings up to C tier, just because the smaller hitbox was actually pretty huge. He got like 50% smaller or something. It was actually pretty nuts how much smaller he got. And then the grappling hook change was pretty huge. But Gibraltar was still sitting at C tier alone, and then Caustic was sitting at D tier alone. So with this, I probably will have Caustic at least up to C tier, if not up to B tier, which is going to be really awkward because that means nobody's going to be in D tier. So I might rework my system to where there's always going to be somebody at D tier, or maybe I'll just leave it empty, which is probably fine too. Gibraltar is getting the 10% damage reduction as well. Gun shield health increased by from 50 to 75. I don't think this is going to be enough to make him top of the level. Neither of these characters I think are going to be at S tier, even with 10% damage reduction. If you have a 10% damage reduction, but you're still easier to hit, you're still going to take way more damage than other players, which means you're still going to go down quicker. That's just how it is. If I'm spraying at you if I'm shooting like a wingman, right? So say somebody like a Wraith who's a 50% character size to like Gibraltar or Caustic. That means out of like 5 shots, 50%, we'll say 4 shots. Out of 4 shots, if she's 50% smaller, then my accuracy minimum requirement to hit all 4 shots with a wingman, which will do 180 damage, would only actually do 90 damage to the Wraith because my accuracy minimum requirement will be a lot higher for somebody who has a smaller hitbox. So I'll likely miss those 2 shots on the Wraith versus those 2 shots are much easier to hit on the Caustic Gibraltar. With that logic, then if you have a 10% damage reduction, so you go against 180 damage taken as a Caustic Gibraltar at that point versus a 90 damage reduction, 9 damage taken from a Wraith, all body shots assumingly in this scenario, then the Caustic Gibraltar now will take 162 damage versus the still 90 that the Wraith was taking in that scenario. So if it's easier for me to hit them, and imagine I don't have perfect accuracy. So even if I hit 3 of the 4 shots, but because Wraith is smaller, it's 2 out of the 4. So I only miss 1 extra shot for the Wraith instead because of a lot smaller hitbox. This was a lot harder to hit her. Therefore, it would be 135 damage taken initially for the Caustic and Gibraltar. It'll be 90 damage taken for the Wraith. So suddenly I'm actually doing 100 and it's not going to be as low as 110. But even if we say it's even more damage reduction for 110, so I think it's going to be like around 116. It'll be 116.5, whatever at that point. 116.5 for 10% damage reduction from 135 to even more than that damage. It's going to be more like 120 damage. So 120 over 90. You get it though. You get it. Like the Wraith still in an effective, realistic engagement will likely take less damage still than the Caustic and Gibraltar would take. So 10% damage reduction is not as much as it would seem on paper in a realistic real world scenario because of the hitbox sizes. Those hitboxes are still such a big deal that the 10% damage reduction is still not going to be enough to get them on the level of like a Wraith or Bangalore or something like that. Gun shield increase though is nice, 50 to 75. That's a big saving grace for Gibraltar. I was always talking about how Caustic and Gibraltar have been one of the best and strongest early game characters, but then they suddenly become one of the weakest late game characters, which is why I overall have them ranked lowest, because if you want to win the game, you'll be in the late game, where what I consider late game is people are roaming and they all have like better gear, they have equipped and kitted weapons, they have better shields, like quality, blue, purple, right? Stuff like that. That's late game. Early game is like your initial drop and you're trying to scramble for a gun and armor and just trying to like, you have like no ammo to work with, you don't really have any attachments, stuff like that. That's early game. So in that scenario, people don't have a lot of ammo, they don't have really good detachments, so it's harder for them to hit. Your hitbox isn't that big of a deal if they have a hard time hitting you and they have less damage or less ammo to use damage, use as damage essentially. Your gun shield giving you a 50% durability increase is actually pretty huge. So if you don't have a shield, the other person doesn't have a shield, you suddenly have a shield. And in that engagement, you're going to win, right? Which is still logic and can apply to later game, yes, but it's not as significant, because if you have 100 HP, and what I say as durability is going to be HP plus shields, plus armor. If you have 100 HP, your 50 arm shield, your gun shield, will be a 50% increase of durability. But if somebody else finds a white shield and you don't have a white shield, then you're literally on even ground and suddenly they're the smaller hitbox. So they're probably going to win. If you find a white shield, that 50 gun shield, your durability increase suddenly goes down from 50% to about 33%, which is a lot less significant. And then once you get to like a purple shield, if you have a purple armor, your gun shield only gives you 50 out of 100, 50 to 200, for a 25% increase, which is, again, a lot less. So you're progressively getting less benefit from your passive as the game goes on. Their buff to 75 kind of mitigates that to like the middle ground. If you still want a 50% overall buff to the late game where you assumingly have a purple shield or gold, either way is 100 durability increase, then you'd need your gun shield to be 100 durability bonus to still give you a 50% increase of durability relative to what you start the game with for your passive. So your passive is going to be a lot stronger, but it's still going to get weaker and weaker as the game goes on, as you find more armor pieces. Not that the 75 is going to go down, but the relevancy of how strong your passive is will be less significant, if that makes sense to you. So the durability is going to be the same. It's going to be a flat 75, just like beforehand it was a flat 50, but the value of it will be less valuable as the game goes on, which is why I thought it would be better if your gun shield was like connected to your armor, to where if you have no armor at all, your gun shield's 50. If you get white armor, it goes up to 75. If you get purple armor, then it goes up to 100. And then maybe if you get blue armor, then be like an 80, 85. It's not going to be a really clean, even number there. If you're going to have a 50% of 175, it's not going to be a clean, even number. It's going to have a decimal there, but maybe make it like 85, 80, 85, something like that. Or you can just skip it and just go straight from white to purple increase. So if your gun shield durability is relevant to your armor, then your passive value will be maintained throughout the game. Therefore, Gibraltar would not be falling off in the power value as the game goes on. Same for Caustic. The gas damage per tick is increased a lot, which is huge because being able to block doors in early game is amazing. Plus, you have an ability that does damage to other players. I'm pretty sure Bangalore is the only other one that can do damage to other players, and it's a flat 10 damage with a smoke. And that's if you have a perfect aim smoke. You only have 2 of them with a pretty long cooldown. Whereas Caustic, it can drop like 4 traps or whatever, 3 traps. You can probably get a 4th one pretty quickly. You have 6 out at a time. Blocking doors, controlling the area, and if they ever try to push in and challenge you, they're suddenly taking a lot of damage now compared to before. And they also are disoriented, hard to see anything, stuff like that. and they actually are also ensnared. It's not a pure snare, it's not like a trap, but it's slow. So yeah, Caustic's amazingly strong early game. It always has been. And now he's going to be even stronger early game. But he's still going to suffer the problem where as you start roaming around the map, if you're caught out roaming around the map, you don't really have a lot of cover as you're roaming naturally, generally. And your character is built around having a set up traps to create like a controlled area as a character. Even the ultimate throwing distance increased, you still don't have any rapid movement changes. You can't drop a dome like Gibraltar can even. You can't pull out a gun shield suddenly like Gibraltar can. You're just standing there like, I guess I'll try to do this popping animation and throw my ultimate. But I think that takes 2 seconds to do so. And with the time to kill in this game, you would generally be dead in those 2 seconds. If you're not dead, then you're like one shot to a single player. And if there's more than one player shooting you and they hit their shots, then you're dead generally before you even throw your ult, which has happened to me before. I've been roaming and suddenly 2 people ambush me, start shooting me suddenly, and then I try to throw my ult in response because that's really the only answer I have as Caustic until I can get to my cover as I'm rotating towards the cover I'm trying to throw it, and I'm dead in less than 2 seconds because 2 people team shot me, hit all the shots, I have a big hitbox, and I have no escape abilities. I couldn't use a shield like Gibraltar even, which is why Caustic was at the bottom. I think Gibraltar might go up to B tier from all this, but it'll be a low B. But Caustic would go up to like C tier, and I don't see his character going above B probably ever, just because of how the character is designed in a battle royale. The only way you can really utilize Caustic is if you're very passive as a player, but that's the best way to utilize his abilities, and that's the safest way to go because if you get caught out in roaming, then you're probably dead. But with that less risk of movement, also you likely will not have as good quality gear to fight with in the late game when all these other people are roaming around with purple shields, fully kitted weapons, tons of ammo. They probably have throwables, all these like batteries and stuff. These people are roaming the whole game and getting kills and collecting all the best loot from all the people they killed. And they're ready to go while you probably sat around most of the game, likely have a white, maybe blue shield. You don't have the best attachments for your guns, probably fairly low on ammo. You don't have a whole lot of throw, and like you're working with like cells versus the other player's batteries. So if you do chip damage to each other, go low on shielding, they battery up, they're at 100 back again, bonus durability, go back at you at like 200 HP essentially, 200 durability, and then you're sitting there at like, oh, I did 125 because like I had sell off in that time. Like you don't, if your gear's not as good, you're just going to have a lower success rate moving on. So because of all that, I think Caustic is never really going to be that great of a character in Apex. And even as I play him today, he's going to be buffed. I'm probably going to feel that strength. I can't wait to feel that. He's still probably not going to be top tier. Savage Pinecone, do I remember you? I do not, but hey man, glad you're back. Did you change your name? Something like that. We'll move on to weapon balancing. That's a lot of time we spend on the legends. But that's, I mean, the legends are like half the game, right? So I want to cover that pretty in-depthly. The weapon balancing, I'll be glossing over a little bit more because it doesn't require as much in-depth discussion, I think. Overall, what they're doing is they're making the snipers more viable, and they're nerfing Wingman and Spitfire while buffing Havoc. That's basically it. How they're making the snipers more viable. There's a mechanic in the game. If you shoot the legs, which is like the lower torso area, then you actually do 25% less damage than you would if you shot the torso. And then therefore, if you shot the head, you do even more bonus damage, which I think is generally double. But that all changes based on what helmet quality they have. But even if they have the best helmet quality, they're still going to be taking more damage to the head than they do to the torso, and they'll still take less damage to the legs than they do to the torso. So generally what you want to go for is shoot to the higher part of the body. They take more and more damage as you shoot higher up towards the head, essentially. The snipers, though, because you have a slower fire rate than the fully automatic weapons, they decided that maybe we'll just not punish you as much if you don't quite hit the torso, but you hit the leg instead. So you do 10% reduced damage to the legs versus the previous 25%. All other guns besides these three, G7 Scout, Triple Take, Longbow, all of the guns do 25% less damage to the legs still, just like they always have. But these three guns now do 10% damage to the legs reduced So they'll do almost the same as if it was a body shot, like a torso shot. Also, the weapon sway, if you ever notice, when you just aim down your sights, it kind of just starts swaying a little bit. The amount of sway, how much of a differential it is from like the where you actually aimed, and it'll kind of like circle around. Like if this is where you aimed, it'll like kind of circle around your aim, kind of deal. But this is where you started, and it'll just kind of go around where you started. The amount of like the radius of how much it can sway around is reduced by 33%, and how fast it'll sway around is reduced by 25%. So it's less sway overall, and the sway is a lot slower, so therefore it'll be a lot easier to control. So it'll translate to being easier to hit your shots, especially at longer ranges, which is really nice. And as it's easier to hit your shots, also you'll do more damage if it's a leg shot versus before. The longbow specifically, so that's for all three of these weapons, G7 Scout, Triple Take, Longbow, DMR. Longbow specifically, though, also is getting, on top of those other changes, also is getting a fire rate increase of about half. It's 1.2 to 1.6, that's a 0.4 increase. Half would be 0.6, so it'd probably be more like 33 or the 40% increase, something like that. So it's pretty significant. You're getting kind of close to a double. You're getting kind of close to where you'll be able to shoot 3 shots in a time where previously you'd probably be only able to shoot 2 shots. So if I'm going to have like 3 seconds to shoot shots, I'll be able to get off like 3 shots probably now, whereas beforehand it'll be 2. I don't know the exact numbers because the fire rate's a little bit weird how they listed it, but I think that's 1.6 shots per second versus the previous 1.2 shots per second. So that would mean, I think that would mean within 2 seconds you can shoot 3 shots now, where beforehand you could only shoot 2 shots. So you'll be able to shoot faster. Long story short, which is nice because the problem with longbow beforehand was, why would you have a longbow when you have a wingman? There's no damage fall off, and the wingman can shoot way faster and is fairly accurate longer ranges, and I had a pretty good mag size too, so you can just spam shots even though there's a little bit of a bloom and bullet drop and stuff. Not damage drop, but bullet drop. Because of all that, it's kind of like, why would you go longbow over a wingman? You might as well just spam a wingman. We'll talk about the wingman a little bit more later, but this is a good buff for longbow and make it a lot more viable in the game. Make snipers a lot more viable. Additionally, on top of that, the increase in magazine size. The base size goes from 5 to 6. If you get a common mag extender or the white one, it's 6 to 8. Rare mag extender, it's a blue one, goes 8 to 10. And the epic mag extender increased from 10 to 12, which means previously your base mag size was 5, and then you get a white one, you have 6, then you get a blue one, it's 8, and you get a purple one, it's 10. But now you're going to have 6, then 8, then 10, then 12. So you get a nice buff of amount of ammo. It's roughly 1 to 2 per mag increase over what previously was. Cool beans. I don't think that's that big of a deal for a sniper rifle, but it will translate pretty nicely because anytime you have to reload is downtime from your effective ability to damage and apply cover fire, suppressing fire, finish off somebody weak, poke back, things like that. The less time you can do that, the worse. So the more time you'll be able to keep being able to fire, the better off you will be. So anytime you have a mag extender, it's not going to be a huge deal generally, unless it's an automatic weapon. But these single shot weapons, it's not going to be a huge deal, but it's going to matter. It's going to be there. You're going to feel it. It's not going to be as big of a deal as the rate of fire increase, the damage reduction and decrease, and the sway speed and value decrease. Those are all going to be a bigger deal than the max size, but the max size is still significant. Moving on to the Havoc. So yeah, I'll talk about meta changes in a bit. So I'll cover the other guns first. Moving on to the Havoc, base mag size goes from 25 to 32. That's actually a big deal. Like I just actually mentioned, automatic weapons suffer from mag size issues a lot. So anytime you see a mag size increase, especially for an automatic weapon, it's going to be a big deal. It's like pretty significant deal for single shot weapons. Automatic weapons, it's like freaking thank God we can have bigger mag sizes. So that's actually massive. That's a pretty big deal. Especially because the Havoc can't, if I remember right, it only has scope, stock, and hop up, right? Pretty sure you can't increase the max size of the Havoc, which is one of the many reasons why it was not bigger deal. Yo, Ando, thank you for the follow or the host. Thank you. Ando, how's your stream, babe? Welcome. Thank you back. Your first stream back after a while too, man. Thank you. If you're gonna be on to play more games in a little bit, I'm mostly the way done with the patch rundown. So let me know. I'm gonna continue the patch rundown because I'm actually recording for YouTube. So yeah. Havoc, max size increase. Huge deal. Also for the charge beam, that's the select fire hop up edition to make it basically a sniper rifle. The cost per shot goes down from 5 to 4. Major. You use a lot of ammo for not that much damage output for your shot. I feel like this should be reduced even more to like 3 to 2. Actually, no, this should probably be like a 3, in my opinion. But 4 is still a pretty big deal because now instead of it being 5 sniper shots per mag, it's 5 into 25. It's now going to be, what is that, 8? What's the math here? Yeah, 8. You're going to be able to get 8 shots per mag with a sniper shot instead of only 5, which means less time you have to spend reloading, which is more time you'll be able to be useful in a fight, essentially. It's good stuff. The close range damage, it's going to be 60 over the 55. That's for the sniper shot. These are for the sniper shots. Damage at range is 45 to 50. This did get affected by damage fall off. I think Wingman does have damage fall off, but such a long, ridiculous range that you're more likely going to miss your shot due to bloom or damage or bullet drop than you are to actually experience damage drop. But the Havoc, the sniper shot, actually did significantly be affected by damage drop off, which means like the longer you shoot, you could progressively get less damage output if you shoot at longer distances, which makes not a lot of sense because this is supposed to be like a sniper attachment. So damage at close range is buffed, damage at longer range buffed, damage fall off for close range is not going to be until 75 meters, so that's a pretty significant distance. And that long range damage fall off is going to be 125 meters. You're probably not going to be shooting at anybody beyond 125 meters with a Havoc charge beam. that's like Kraber distances, maybe longbow. But stuff like a Scout, triple take, Havoc charge beam, 125 meters is really far. You're going to have a really hard time even seeing the target. So you're probably not going to really experience range damage fall off anymore from a Havoc, realistically. Wingman nerfs, basically just reducing the mag size. How I talked about earlier, you can really spam a Wingman at longer ranges, which makes it basically do what a longbow does, but better. It's less accurate, but you can spam it and still does almost as much damage. So now they are reducing the base mag size from 6 to 4, and therefore all the mag extenders are being nerfed as well. So even if you have a purple, you can only have 10 in the mag instead of the 12 previously. And to start, you're at 4 rounds in the mag, which is like, I gave that example earlier for the Caustic Gibraltar versus Wraith for effective, realistic damage reduction, for hitbox size versus flat damage reduction for character passive. I used the example of 4 rounds shot from a Wingman. So there you go. Even if you get 4 rounds shot to the body, even without the damage reduction, you're doing 180 damage max. So if early game happens, they get purple armor, you hit all 4 shots to the body with Wingman, you're like, oh my god, I hit so many shots, that's actually really good. They got them all to the body. They're still chilling and alive, and you have to reload, and they're still shooting at you. So that's problematic. So the Wingman early game is actually pretty significantly nerfed. Now, granted, early game, you're probably not going to run into a person with purple armor, generally. That's only if you land like hot or something, you're probably going to find a mag extender pretty quickly. But it's going to happen. There's going to be times somebody's going to have purple armor. You only have 4 rounds in your Wingman as a max mag size. You hit all 4 body shots, and they're going to be alive. That's going to happen. Not every game, but like maybe once or twice a night or something. It's going to happen. So your headshot requirement is going to be through the roof for now. Try to hit those headshots a little better. That is a pretty significant nerf to the wingman early game. But once you start getting like a blue or purple mag, it's not going to be that big of a deal, honestly. The 12 was really excessive, to be honest. It's not common that you need to really have a 12 mag size. So 10 is actually still pretty solid. Late game, if you're in like the final fights and everybody's kitted up and everything, and they have like purple shields and all that, if you have 10 rounds in your wingman, you're sitting pretty nicely. Even at 8 rounds, you're going to be pretty fine. But you're really going to want to find at least a white mag and try to get to a blue or better. Your wingman is not going to feel as good until you get to like a blue or better than what you previously was experiencing with general mag increases. Your white one is going to get to you where you basically need a white one now just to make it the base level as it was before, you know. So I think that's a pretty significant nerf for wingman. I will not be as excited to find one early game as I was before. Beforehand, I was like, wingman bet 6 in the chamber is probably the best stock weapon. Stock meaning you don't need attachments or anything. Wingman is probably overall the best stock weapon in the game. But because of this nerf, it goes down pretty significantly, and you'll probably see that the flatline is actually probably the best stock weapon in the game now. Which is funny to say because nobody ever runs flatline. I know, because it doesn't have a lot of attachment slots, especially a barrel stabilizer. Without the barrel stabilizer, it's pretty terrible later on because it's going to be a lot harder to hit your shots, especially at longer ranges. But it does a lot of damage per bullet, and it's a pretty good mag size. You'll be able to down basically anybody if you hit your shots decently with a flatline. So flatline is probably the best stock weapon in the game now, but it falls off pretty quickly once you find attachments for other guns. Spitfire nerfs. The base damage is straight up reduced, 20 to 18 per shot. Remember, that does even less damage if you hit the feet or like the legs. A lot of people don't even realize that was a thing, but you do a lot less damage if you hit the legs. Also, they're nerfing the mag size, so it's not going to be all as sprayable as well. The base mag size is going to be the same 35, but the mag extensions are going to get a 5 or 10 value nerf. So you're going to have 5 less bonus from a white, 10 less bonus from a blue, and 5 less bonus from a purple. So blue's value went down a lot. And because it was only 5 more than the white one, you're probably not going to get excited about getting a blue mag extension anymore. Previously, it was like a white one, great. A blue one, awesome. I got a purple mag extension. All right, I'll take it. But now it's going to be like, white one, okay. Blue one, awesome. Wait, no. White one, all right. Blue one, all right. But then the purple one's going to be like, awesome. That reaction was for the purple one. So the white and blue are not that big of a difference from each other. But still, blue will have 10 rounds more than the base, which is still significant. But once you get to the purple, you're chilling. That's where you want to be for the Spitfire. I wasn't a big fan of using Spitfire previously because your strafe speed is really reduced, so you become an easier target while you're shooting the Spitfire. But it still was one of the best guns in the game because if you're not the focus fire of the enemy, then you can just spray at them, do a lot of damage, and have massively large mag size. Even if you were the focus of the enemy fire, you still have a massively large mag size. You can still spray at them, you still do a lot of damage. So the damage reduced, mag size reduced. Those are 2 aspects of the Spitfire that made it so much better than pre-machining another gun. So overall, it's going to be nerfed a lot and not nearly as viable as it was before. But I still predict that it's going to be pretty high up there in the overall meta, especially for later game. Early game, still going to be great. Amazing. Stock value of Spitfire is great. Late game with the Epic Mag, still great. But that kind of like middle game-ish, where you're getting like a whiter blue attachment for the mag size, definitely nerfed. And also overall, it's nerfed for base mag size. So my predictions after I take a drink of water because my mouth is getting dry. A prediction for the meta with guns before we talk about golds and all that stuff. Sniper is going to be more viable. Still are not going to be top dog. It's still not going to be a sniping meta, in my opinion, based on my predictions. I don't think it's going to be a sniping meta. I think things like a 301 are still going to be better. Around Wingman, SMG, shotguns are still going to be meta, especially because of the character movement. Character movement, aside from like Caustic, is going to be so much better still than the value of getting a sniper off. Not saying you can't be useful with a sniper. People before these buffs were useful with snipers. There's been games where somebody hit their sniper shots while I was engaging with their buddy or something, and I was like, frick, dude, I basically just lost this fight because they hit 1 or 2 sniper shots. It's still going to be your best option at longer ranges as well. So if you prefer fighting at longer ranges, there you go. Snipers are still going to suffer from the fact that because of movement, even if you hit your shots, typically people are going to be able to get behind cover. They'll be able to use their shieldings like that to regenerate their shields, armor, health, whatever. Generally, you'll be able to do that before you're able to effectively push them and finish them before they get all that off. Because of that, your fights are going to generally be a lot longer time frame fights than if you just went with like a medium to close range option setup, like the Carbine, Flatline, Wingman, Spitfire, Havoc, Devotion, as well as like a short range option like the R99 or a shotgun or something like that. So that's still probably going to be the most viable loadout. They're going to have to do a lot more buffs to the longer range options, a lot more nerfs to the shorter range options to really switch that meta around. But honestly, because of I really would like them to not do that unless they also reduce the distance you can hear gunshots, because in this game you can hear gunshots from like halfway across the map, it feels. So if your fight's taking a long time, you're gonna have a lot of third, fourth, fifth, etc. party teams coming in to fight you, find your flank, stuff like that. And you're gonna be focusing on hitting your shots on the people you're engaging with. And the fight's taking forever. You're announcing your position to the map essentially. Other people are gonna roam in and they're gonna get surprise attacks on you and such. So because of all that, I don't think sniping is still gonna be the meta. And I wouldn't want it to be the meta until they nerf gunshot ranges for audio. But these are still very significant buffs, and if you enjoy sniping, you should rejoice. Like, this is very significant buffs. It's going to be a lot easier to hit your shots. You're going to do more damage if you barely miss your shot but still hit them, and especially the longbow, you're going to be able to shoot more often to be able to make up for missed shots. So it's still significant buffs. It's still not going to be the meta for snipers. Havoc, I think the charge beam is still going to be overall a weaker option. You're probably going to want the turbocharger instead for Havoc to optimize its maximum potential. If you want to run a sniper rifle, I would suggest running longbow. I think longbow is going to be definitely the best sniping option in the game. Triple take has a hard time doing significant damage at longer ranges. The scout just straight up doesn't do a whole lot of damage. Plus, because of the travel times like that, like you're going to hit as many shots to the scout. Like you're going to have to do like 2 shots to the scout hit to equivalent to roughly 1 longbow shot hit. And especially since longbow is getting its rate of fire increased, it's the scout value is going to go down a lot. Triple take value has already been pretty down. It's going to go down even more. Longbow value and relevance to other snipers are going to go up. So Havoc, I think this charge beam change is great, but I still would prefer using a longbow over it. But the Havoc base mag size increase is actually amazing for turbocharge usage, using as like a medium range, close to medium range assault rifle. Wingman is going to go down a lot in value, even at longer ranges, because you have to like get it set up and everything. It's still not going to be that great value. You're going to see a lot less people using it. I think the best gun in the meta is going to be the Carbine, the best overall gun, I should say, meaning it's the best gun for any range, is probably going to be the Carbine. Wingman is going to be still close to it. This isn't like this doesn't kill the Wingman, but it's going to be less valuable. So I think the Carbine actually is going to take it. Spitfire is going to go down a lot. I will take a Carbine over Spitfire any day of the week if the Carbine's kitted. But if both guns are just flat stock, then I'll take a Spitfire over a Carbine. But the moment I start finding any attachments, Carbine over Spitfire for me. You'll be able to hit your shots a lot easier, and your overall damage output is going to be better. So I'm going to place it Spitfire at the top, the Carbine at the top for kitted weapons, Carbine, and then I'm going to have Wingman and Spitfire under that. Stock though, Spitfire over Carbine, Carbine, Wingman, and about even for the It's kind of like the trifecta of medium range weaponry. Has been Wingman, Spitfire, Carbine for a while. Hemlock is kind of up in there, but it's more of like a longer-ish range weapon and isn't as versatile by any means as the Wingman, Carbine, and Spitfire. It's just not as versatile. They didn't really make any changes for close range options. So SMGs like the R99, shotguns, those are basically going to be the same in the meta as they were before. So higher value on Carbine, less value on Spitfire, unless it's the early game. And then less early in value for Wingman, still high value for Wingman late game. So Wingman early, weaker early, still strong late. Spitfire weaker late, still strong early. Carbine still weak early, mega strong late. Try kit up a Carbine. Havoc, it's gonna be great for turbocharging, but still it's probably going to be not as good as like a Carbine kitted. But my god, that is definitely significant. It's going to be up there with like the Spitfire and stuff, just below Carbine, in my opinion. Snipers, go for a longbow if you can. Triple taking scout a lot better, but longbow is definitely the way to go if you really enjoy sniping. Gold items. Here we go. We're moving on. We're almost done, actually. Gold Havoc now has turbocharger. Great call. That's definitely a better version than the Select Fire. And has a 1 to 2 times variable hollow sight, which is great because it's supposed to be a close to medium range weapon, especially with the turbocharger. Gold R301 finally has a 1 to 2 times variable instead of, I think it was a 2 to 4 from before. Carbine's decent at longer ranges, but it's a close to medium range option. Definitely ideal for medium range. You don't want a 2 to 4 times sight on it. Basically, when I run it on the map, I don't really do anything other than a 1-time scope for anything. Gold Wingman now has digital threat instead of the previous 1 to 2 times zero sight. Beforehand, Gold's Wingman was amazing early game because you instantly have like a max mag size, you have the skull piercer, and you have a decent sight on it. But as you get to late game, it becomes a problem because I would have much preferred having a digital threat because Bangalores and Caustics, and otherwise just ease of target acquisition and being able to line up your shot on a red target instead of something that blends in with the environment. The digital threat on Gold Wingman is an amazing call, and the value of the Gold Wingman just skyrocketed. Same for the R301 and the Havoc. All three of these are major buffs to the gold versions, and previously I didn't pick up any of these gold versions, but now if I get any of these gold versions, I'm going to be picking it up and I'll be using it as my main gun for medium range combat. So awesome buffs. Other thing, little changes. Battle Pass, if you have that, for each day from the 16th, 17th, and 18th, if you get a top 5 or better, then you get an entire Battle Pass level unlocked for you. Boom. So your Battle Passes will unlock faster, which is good. Then you do more of these because the Battle Pass takes way too long to complete with not valuable enough gear and rewards. I'll go more in depth on that in like a journal article or something like that later. I won't cover that in here because it's a patch review, but good for Battle Pass. Jump shipping speed increase actually is pretty significant. 50% speed increase for the jump ship. That's the ship that you're in when the game starts, and then it goes over the map. It's going to go 50% faster, which means jumping at later spots is going to be more viable, and you're more likely going to be seeing players more spread out around the map. Whereas beforehand, people would just either they just want to get in the fight instantly, or also they just are tired of waiting around. They'll drop instantly. So straight down drops was pretty common for a lot of players. I think it's going to be a little bit more common to see people more spread across the map, but you're still going to find a lot of fights on straight down drops. It's just not going to be quite as common, but it's still going to be, you're still going to be fighting a lot of people if you go straight down generally. Bug fixes as well. Fix the UI bug where the wrong percentage was displayed on the boost badges on the Battle Pass. It said each like purple thing you got that had like the boost badge, you're supposed to get a 5% increase to XP, I think it is. But it got bugged and it said 0% increase. UI change. But there you go. That's the full rundown. Chat, I don't know if you have any questions for anything I didn't cover. Overall, Caustic and Gibraltar are better, but I think they're still going to be on the bottom tier of the game, but they at least are playable, I'd say. weapons, snipers better. Longbow is your ideal. Havoc, you still want to be using the medium range turbocharger version. Wingman's weaker early, stronger as strong late as it was before. Not stronger, but as strong late, but weaker early. Spitfire is as strong early, slightly less, but realistically is as strong, but a lot weaker late. All the gold versions are way better for the Havoc, R301, and Wingman. Definitely use those if you find them. Actually is a pretty big threshold here for the 2018 that I didn't cover earlier. And it's my last point is beforehand, you only need to shoot somebody 5 times in the body to kill them with a Spitfire if they have no armor. Big for early game. People a lot of times don't have armor. Now you're going to have to hit them with a 6th shot. You have to hit an additional 1 bullet on a player. That's generally not going to be a big deal, but there's going to be times where you didn't get that 6th bullet and you're like, dang, dude, they didn't die yet. Usually with this effort and this amount of hits, they're dead, but they're not yet. You're going to feel that. And then you're going to be like, oh my God, I need to still kill this person. It's going to be there. It's not going to be significant, and it doesn't take the value away from Spitfire, in my opinion, early game, really. It's just going to be weaker. But the value of it versus other weapons early game doesn't really change for me. Flatline's still amazing early game, but terrible instantly after. Carbine is still going to be overall the best option for medium range, in my opinion. Yeah. Cool beans. I feel like reducing magazine size promotes a more close range fight in early game. Probably drop a clip and melee to death. Yeah. I'd say so. Reducing mag size would promote more meleeing. I think what it's going to actually do is going to cause people to play a little bit less aggressively, to be honest. Because they can't just rush somebody with these guns that had a higher mag size and then just take them out and keep pushing. The SMG and shotguns are not affected at all, and those are the close range items. So if they're going to be rushing you, they generally will have those close range weapons already. Havoc has an increased mag size, so they'll probably be more aggressive with the increased mag size with that. Wingman, they'll be less aggressive because they're probably going to have to reload a lot more often. So they're going to want to try to find cover more often. So they'll be actually less aggressive Wingman users. Spitfire, though, the mag size doesn't change, but the damage reduction might make them be a little bit less aggressive because they're going to have to make sure they get their shots off, and they have to get 6 instead of 5. Until they get like armor and then just a lot more math involved, but you get the idea of how math works there. I think overall aggression is going to be generally the same, though. Havoc a little bit more aggressive, Wingman a little less aggressive, Spitfire probably the same, maybe a little less aggressive. But the SMGs like R99, RE45, which is more like an automatic pistol, alternator, and then like a shotguns, those are all the same clip size and everything. So if anybody was aggressive beforehand, they probably had one of those options already. So their aggression would not be stifled by these changes to medium to long range weapons. This is a very medium long range weaponry focus patch, nothing to the close range. Awesome. Cool. So that was the patch rundown. If you liked it, cool. I'll try to be a little bit faster, but I just really want to cover all the significant points that came to mind. This is a pretty significant patch. The meta is overall going to be the same. Character strength versus each other, overall same. Weapons, all that, overall same. Just snipers are going to be stronger. These weapons are going to be different power values at different times of the game than they were before. Gold weapons are better, and costing Gibraltar have a better chance in the game, but these still will be overall weaker compared to pretty much all the other characters. That's it. Name Shadowlands, you probably know that. If you enjoy that, comments and all that stuff are appreciated. I love hearing feedback, both good and bad. If you have bad feedback, then please explain. That way it can be constructive. If you have good feedback, you don't really need to explain, but still, if you want to, that'd be awesome too. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you. And that's that.